Well, hi, everybody. My name is Jody Pack, and I'm the Dean in PR at Northeast Texas Community College, and I'm also the East Texas Regional Director for TACCM. And so when I was tasked with coming up with a topic for our Lunch and Learn, I was really just I was in general thinking more on the lines of technical things that we do in marketing and digital marketing and stuff like that. But I kind of got to thinking about it, and I was talking to Cindy, and I was really thinking about how important mental health is in everything that we're doing at the colleges right now. And our students are struggling in so many ways. And I just felt like it would be really interesting to hear some more about how mental health is affecting our students and how we could learn some lessons from that as marketers and communicators to better serve our students and to better communicate with them in ways that are empathetic and that make them make our colleges seem more comfortable and approachable to them. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cindy Stansell, and she's got a bunch of fancy licenses behind her name, but I'll just tell you, she is our campus angel. She came to us, was it Cindy, last summer? And she is just honestly the best thing that we've done at NTCC in a long time. She sees students on an individual basis, and she conducts mental health trainings for us, and she has just been wonderful, and she is just a fount of knowledge in this regard. She's got many, many years of experience in K through 12. She worked for the Region 8 Service Center. And without further ado, Cindy, I'd just like to turn it over to you to talk to us about mental health. She's going to go through some research, and then we're going to follow that up with some conversation and questions. So, Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. That was really sweet, Jody. I don't know if I'm going to be able to live up to all that, but I'll try. I am really happy to be able to do this and to share this information with you guys. What you're doing is, well, what everyone does at a college. You know, we all have a piece of it, and that student success is dependent on every single piece and every single person. We have a little saying here, and I'm going to look at my sticker. It says, everyone is important to the success of every one of our students. And I do believe that. I believe that each one of us have a piece of that. And so today we are going to look at just some mental health information of college students, some changes that have happened. And throughout this, I will probably share a few little pieces. I've been tasked with a focus group here on campus, along with a couple of other staff members, and we are meeting with student groups, just small student groups. We're asking questions, we're getting information, trying to figure out, you know, how do we better engage our students, and how do we help with that success? You know, what are we doing that you're utilizing, and what do we need to add in? So there may be a few things that I add into this just from that. And then, like Jody said, the biggest piece, I mean, what I'm going to tell you, you probably are very well aware of. Maybe not the specific facts or statistics of it, but you know that mental health is at its peak of being a hindrance and an issue for so many people. And because the stigma has gone down from that a little bit, it seems like we're seeing even more. So, but our biggest goal today is that interaction with you. So if I'm talking about something, you have something to share about it, please stop me. I cannot see your faces. So if you want to jump in, just jump in over me. I will stop, and I definitely want to hear. There'll be some things that I'll ask questions for and ask for input. So please be able to share. I'm the newbie here. Y'all are all familiar with each other. So please don't be shy about it. Jump in and tell us what you're doing or what you think about it. So just to kind of start off with, what I want to look at is just some of the facts. APA reports in 2021 school year that more than 60% of college students met the criteria for that, for at least having one mental health problem. This was from a study that was done, and I referenced in this at the end of this slide as well. And then they also, also from the National College Health Assessment, 3/4 of college students reported having a moderate or severe psychological distress. Now, those are just facts, but it's staggering when we really get down to it and realize what our students are going through and what they're doing about that, you know, what resources are there. So some causes of stress, and these are, this was from, again, another resource that I do have listed at the end of this slide deck, but it's also from this focus group. And just from the knowledge that we know, not having enough money. College students are stressing over money. They're stressing over academic achievement. Some of the students that are in community college are experiencing for the first time not being successful in school, and that is very, very stressful. Having unrealistic expectations. They don't know really what to expect, and then when they're not able to meet those expectations, it creates an increased amount of stress. Time urgency, social pressures, change in eating and sleeping habits. Their diet is changing. They're having, you know, they're choosing different things like coffee, cola, Coke, and chocolate more than your healthy foods. They're having too much studying and not enough physical activity, so they're kind of just a little too laxed about that physical activity. Then the extracurricular activities are stressing them because, you know, they want to be involved. They want to get social groups going with themselves, but they're unable to start those. They're unable to even make that first step to try to make friends. A breakup, so a relationship change, the change to environment, changes in responsibility, caring, and this is one that I see a lot in my my job role here, is they're carrying on with part-time, or some of the students with full-time jobs in addition to school full-time and being away from home for the first time. High stress, having roommate issues, not having enough privacy, and then parental expectations, and just loneliness, not being able to feel connected to other students or to anyone really. Stress is normal, but unmanaged stress can lead to anxiety and depression. So do you see any other stressors, or are you aware of any other stressors in college students that you have come in contact with, or is there something that's not listed on here that maybe you would like to add to that list?
Well, Cindy, this is Jody. I'll chime in real quick. I actually teach part online, and I've noticed an increase in students expecting perfection in their grades. And I've actually had a student get a 96 on an essay, and she emailed me and wanted to know what she could do better next time, and could I give her more feedback on the 3 points that she was, you know, the 4 points that were counted off. Mm-hmm. And I was floored by that she was disappointed with herself with the 96. So to me, that kind of highlights the expectations, and I think some of that carries over from high school. It would be my guess.
Absolutely, that's a very good input there. Yeah, again, these students, you know, they're either high achieving students who have always done really well, and they are confused by the fact that they're not making hundreds on everything, and they don't understand it. It's really okay for it to be that way. Some are just so worried about not satisfying the expectations from their parents or from their peers or their teachers. So yeah, you're exactly right. Anybody else?
I have a question, Cindy.
Sure.
Can you hear me? I know community colleges serve such a wide age range of students. Are you seeing a difference based on like the generation that the student is from? Like the younger students versus much older students, like the issues that they are having, the mental health issues?
You know, Jody and I have talked about this in some of our planning a lot. Well, this generation of students are not prepared to make decisions for themselves. They don't feel as confident in their own abilities, and they're really looking for more guidance, you know, more confirmation and affirmation from other people. and in college, even in community college, you're not always getting a lot of that. So it's still very independent, and they're struggling with that because they just have never had to do it before. There is more cognitive disabilities that and this is my first year here, so I don't know what it has been exactly before this, but I do know that there is a large amount and a very significant amount of students who have cognitive disabilities, and so they're really struggling on a lot of this independence and just doing for themselves and making sure that they are following up. And of course there's some of the same issues that have always been of finally realizing that oh, nobody's doing this for me, nobody's holding my hand, nobody is walking me from this class to this class or waking me up, or just all of the things that go with it. So I don't know if it is I would say overall mental health has increased. Mental health needs have increased a lot over the last few years. And I think a lot of it has more to do with, like I said in the beginning, the stigma of mental health, of seeking help for mental health issues is not as high as it once was. And so people are more likely to reach out for that help now. Yeah.
Cindy, do you mind if I jump in a sec?
No, please.
And I think maybe to your point is, it seems to me like, just from watching the traffic across the hall, that it seems like the younger students are the ones that are seeking help. Am I incorrect in that? Or are you
yes,
broader? Are you seeing your age range?
I see a really broad age range. That we've got a lot of non-traditional students here at the community college here. And so I see a lot of people in the non-traditional setting as well, or in age group, as well as the younger ones. Honestly, it is kind of all over the board.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But thank you
Annie
for
had
asking.
a question.
Yeah, I was wondering how much do you think the pandemic has impacted that, or does it still have an impact?
Ooh, most definitely. I'll tell you, there are several students that I work with on a regular basis that I see multiple times during each week. And the conversations there are so directly related to their experiences during the pandemic, the isolation, the loneliness, the withdrawing, from any kind of social settings, and they just didn't have that support. And then there is what I hear a lot from them is that fear of, is it going to happen again? Spring break just happened, and that was when everybody went home, was at during spring break, and after spring break we didn't go back until after that. And so a lot of the students kind of have that kind of anniversary trigger, of, is it going to happen again? What will we do? How can it be? But I don't believe that since the pandemic, I just don't see them being as resilient and being able to jump back in, as much as they once were. So yes, I definitely believe that it's post-pandemic.
So I have
Thank
a real
you.
quick question, or
Sure.
an observation. This is Elizabeth. I don't deal with students face to face. I deal with them on the phone and through electronic means of communication. So when I speak to students on the phone, I would say probably 6 out of 10 times I'm speaking to a parent and the student at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And they have anxiety just for the process of coming to school. And so that is one thing that we are addressing. We have a student journey mapping committee that we're trying to address to alleviate some of those anxieties and make it more streamlined for the student so it doesn't feel overwhelming from the very beginning before they even step foot in a classroom. And the other thing that I've tried to do with them is I give them the overview, and then I give it to them in bits and pieces, and I tell them, okay, your first step is to do this, and when you finish, call me back, and then we'll talk about step 2. And then I'll send them a text with a reminder and say, hey, don't forget, you need to do this. Here's the link. And I found that a lot of the times they're more positively reacting to that kind of scenario than they would be, you know, well, this is what I give you, you need to do, just do it. I need to get on to the next person. And my communication center team is all trained like that. So it doesn't matter if they talk to me or they talk to one of them, they're going to get the same answer in the same way that we've done it. And I really think that's helped us a lot, because that is one of the biggest anxieties before they even step foot in that classroom for us.
You're exactly right, Elizabeth, and thank you for sharing that. The step-by-step thing, I think that's where we're at with students, especially those students who have that tendency to be struggling with anxiety and that do overstress, overthink everything. Having one step to do and then come back for the next step, yes, and that's awesome that y'all are, that you have, did you call it a student journey mapping? Is that what you said?
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I definitely want to know more about that. That's great. All right. Perfect. Thank you all so much for sharing all those things. That is wonderful. It helps a lot. Traditional approach to students' mental health, you know the things. Individual counseling. We have referred students to community professionals in and near where they live. Student workshops, awareness trainings that that I provide for those student groups, and then talking it out with professors or other staff members. You know, that's what students have done, because before I came here, there was not a counseling center, a mental health counseling center. And so everyone was kind of picking up all the pieces and doing what they could do. So that's one of them. And then extra accommodations that were given by professors. If they saw that a student was really struggling with anxiety or anxiety to testing, then they would give them maybe the possibility to go into the testing center to take the test, or a little extra time to finish it, or whatever. So there's other things I'm sure that you are doing in your schools. But you know, everyone just kind of does what you can do to try to help with it. And so you ask about the pandemic. Here's some information that I did pull in for that, because even before the pandemic, there was this huge outpace, or this huge demand for care, for mental health care. As Jody mentioned, I come from the K-12 setting as a school counselor there, and in my private practice of licensed professional counseling. You know, people do not have the same, overall, people do not have the same coping skills as we once have. And I don't know if it is, well, I do know that it is their parents don't have it, you know, especially when we're talking about our kids. The parents don't have really good coping skills. During the pandemic, everybody was freaking out, you know, and there was so much uncertainty with that. And then there was, everybody was at home. The jobs, a lot of the jobs shut down. The kids were at home, or even if their parents were able to still work, the kids were at home by themselves doing whatever, you know, but it was just all so uncertain. So even before this, we were short of professional care, whether it was in the school, in the K-12 setting, if it was in the community or in the college. There's just not enough people. The average annual caseload for a typical college counselor is 120 students. In some cases, they can see up to 300 students per counselor. And this was from a report in 2021, which was after the pandemic. But this takes up all the hours, the days, the weeks, you know, and there is nothing left. And then what do you do when you've got someone come in that's in crisis, and, you know, the counselor is with another student already? So the post-COVID effects, yes, it just added to this already overloaded system. You know,
Cindy,
when we think about mental health.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure.
And
Sure.
I'm also trying to formulate it kind of in my head as I'm asking it. But when I think about, especially pre-pandemic, and I think, you know, someone raised the question earlier about differences between age groups and so forth. I'm curious if you're seeing, you know, when I think about Gen X, a lot of us were latchkey kids. And so our parents were not often there when we came home from school. And so a lot of times we say, well, we raised ourselves and such. And so I wonder, when you talk about coping mechanisms, if we were raising ourselves, we didn't learn coping mechanisms necessarily from our parents. And then, of course, when you were in the K through 12 environment, that was probably a lot of millennial parents in a lot of ways. So, do you see a difference in the kids that you're working with? And I say kids, I use that term very loosely, but the folks that you're working with in K through 12 versus college, or is it just getting worse, even, no matter who their parents were, no matter what generation they may be falling in?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a good point to really focus on for a second, because it was surprising to me that, when I came into the college and started working with students here, I too call them kids, because honestly, there's not a lot of difference between a high school kid and a community college kid in their processing and their ability to manage stress and to identify, what's really severe and what's really something that we can bounce back from, and that, like I said, that having that resiliency and grit, that is not built into our kids like it once was. Because I agree with you. Years ago, we had working parents, and we did come home to our chores and our homework, and we were responsible for managing those things, and we did. And, there was a lot of things that were different back. I would say 40 years ago, 50 years ago, even as little as 30 years ago, there was things that were different, on the way that we managed it. And I don't know, somewhere along the way, I don't know where it was, but somewhere along the way, our parents were not as equipped. I don't know. I really don't know why it's like this. I do know that it is very similar from age group to college student now. I see a lot of the same things in their inability to manage it, to know what to do next. I've got, I don't know, there's a 27-year-old young lady who has, I've been seeing for a while, and she was in school. She was, not having good experiences in school. So she was homeschooled for the rest of her high school years. And then starting college, it's just like there's nothing there. I don't know the first step about interacting with other people. I don't know how to relate to other people because I don't like what they do and I like what I do. That is something that I see with a lot of students as well, is that just being able to find the social norms that we kind of grew up just, I don't know how we knew them. We were taught them. We learned them by, trial and error, maybe. There just isn't that resilience is just not there. And that is the biggest thing that I see.
Yeah, and I think maybe to echo to the COVID point, my wife teaches fifth grade science, and so a lot of the kids that she's seen right now were first grade, second grade, third grade during COVID. And I think about even our experience. Luckily, she was able to be at home with our kids, but a lot of her students, their parents just weren't able to, work and pay attention to the kids and so forth. So in a lot of those formative years, they missed out on a lot of stuff. And of course, they're going to be getting older and aging into our college system. So it's just going to kind of keep building. So appreciate that.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Because that time that was lost, that's a gap that never will fill. It will never fill. And so what they'll have to do is kind of double up in coming across the years, and hopefully they will make those connections and be able to meet people that, whether it's through counseling or through professors or whoever, their jobs, that will be able to kind of pick up some of that lost time. So yeah.
And I think Mary had a question.
I was just going to add, I don't think we can underestimate the impact that social and digital media has had on the more current generations. Speaking as someone who was Gen X and grew up as a latchkey kid, I didn't have those distractions when I was going to school and growing up. I only had the kinds of things that my peers would say directly to my face, not with the anonymity veil of social media, but that adds a whole new kind of level of stress and pressure. And so not only are they, keeping up with their schoolwork, this is where social norms are coming from. And it's such a information overload, misinformation overload, all these different images, all these different ideas of what we're supposed to be and what a good person is and what a, popular and, good looking and everything like that. So I think it's added a dimension, and that could also be a reason for some of that inability to adapt, or that confidence in completing processes and things like that. I think that with digital media and with information available at our fingertips, it's difficult for people to think outside of the realm of just things being instantly available to them. And I think that plays a part too. So that shift between the generations, that's definitely got to play into it.
No, Mary, you're exactly right, and we would be amiss to not acknowledge that the digital issues, the digital exposure that they have, global exposure that they have. Students are just not prepared for that. And this happens from very early age. You see kids in kindergarten with a cell phone. I'm like, what is wrong with these parents? Why would they possibly need a cell phone in kindergarten? And I'm sorry if you give your child one, but I'm just like, what? Because they don't have that ability to do that. These 16-year-olds barely have the capability to manage a cell phone and all the exposure that they have, So there's way too much exposure, too quick, too early, without that direction. And it does play a big piece in there.
This is Jody. I'd just like to point out that I think in regards to the generational issue we were discussing, I think social media is really affecting all of us also, as opposed to just the kids. Because I've noticed, and I think outside of just the social aspects, the news and the constant feed of bad news and terrifying things that happen in the world are definitely contributing to a lot of our anxieties. I know my 18 stepdaughter came home one day and she was just absolutely, totally distraught because she said, "We're going to war with China." And I said, "Where'd you hear that?" And she said, "I saw it on TikTok. It said that it's inevitable. We're going to war with China and we need to be prepared." And she was like, what are we doing for this war for China? And I said, "Please stop watching the news." But that's the kind of thing. And I think it's not just kids that are susceptible to that. I think it's general media literacy. And I see that in students as well as adults too, because my Facebook feed is full of lots of people who believe a lot of things that aren't true and that are upsetting to people when they're spread. So I just want to point that out.
I can verify. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I can verify that. I remember when the Ukraine war first broke out, I was absolutely devastated. I had to force myself off of social media.
It's true. And, if we think about it that way, it is so extremely powerful to, like you said, not only students, but all people. If we think about it from that perspective, then how can we, there's so much more that we can do, that we can do on the positive side of that can expose people to things of encouragement or things of, teaching new skills. And that's kind of why we're talking about it, because you all, that's what you do. You are in marketing, you are exposing on your campus, you're exposing students to a lot of things. And so we've just got to find some good, really good techniques and good information so that we can put it out there and maybe, influence students in a more positive way. I know we can't do that for the world, but we can do it for our little corner. But yeah, all of those things, so important to consider, because those are all pieces that we're looking at right now with mental health. This is just a little chart, and it, you know, we can't talk about mental health without talking about suicidal ideations and suicidal attempts, and thoughts of you know, of those students who have just self-harm instead of just even the suicidal ideations, because that's two different things. But if you look at this overall, between 2020 and 2021, 39% of individuals who took this PHQ inventory, or it's a little 5-6 question inventory that that you can take, and I give my students that on a regular basis just to kind of keep a good measure of where they're at. But they showed reported frequent suicidal ideations, more than half or nearly every day of this 2 weeks. In other words, it was 8% higher than the average rate of suicidal ideation in 2019 pre-pandemic. So if you look at that from that perspective, people are feeling, and students, adults, whoever, we tend to feel more hopeless and more just not capable of handling what's coming up. Again, we go back to that resiliency. We are not preparing our students or our kids to have that ability to bounce back and realize this is not the end of it, and we do have more supports right here in front of us. And so that was something that the Mental Health America had put out that just kind of gave us a good overall view from 2015 to 2021, and I think it gives a pretty good picture of where we're sitting. But the suicidal student, 46% undergraduates chose not to tell anyone that they were feeling suicidal. And of those who did disclose, 2/3 told a peer. Here it says almost no one reported telling a professor. So if you, let's kind of look at those things together. If 46% of people are not telling anyone, and then the 54% that are telling, they're telling a peer, what's that peer going to do? You know, how are they supposed to support that person? And then students who did reach out for help were significantly less likely to attempt suicide, and they reported improved levels of depression. So the moral of this story is we need to have more people who are reaching out for help, and I think we need to have more people who are trained to be gatekeepers so that they can provide that help. Of course, trauma. We have all heard, you know, that there is a mental health epidemic because of the trauma. I hope you've heard of ACEs, which is just the adverse childhood experiences that are the events that happen in a child's life that causes the trauma that they carry through their life until they can connect with someone and heal from that, whether it's through counseling or whatever it might be. But the peak age of trauma exposure is reported to be between 16 and 21. That's our kids. Students who did experience that trauma were more likely to have problems with substance abuse, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, suicidal attempts, thoughts of harming others, anxiety, depression, hostility, and academic distress. This little paragraph right here can show you why the percentage of students that are unsuccessful at college can kind of give you a better picture of what's happening. Some things that you might see in students. I know that a lot of you don't work directly with students. You will impact them in other ways, but some signs that you might see are listed here. I'm not going to go through each of these, but you know, as you kind of look down that list, some of those may seem familiar, and some you may not have really thought about as being an issue. But that is what we're looking for when we do have that opportunity to see students. These are things that we are looking for, and then we meet them where they are. So overall, the prevalence rate of psychological and psychiatric symptoms in college student are between 25 and 30%. That's way too big.
Can you slow down a little bit? I've been trying to take notes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm going to share. I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure I keep enough time for us to talk, so I did speed up. I apologize.
Okay.
But I will share this whole slide deck with, or they have it, and they can share it with you. But yes, I will definitely slow down.
Okay, thank you.
So 25 to 30% of our college students, that's just a huge number. And a college counseling center, whether it's staffed with one, like ours is, or 15, it's still too many for us to be able to just that be the only avenue. There has to be more. There has to be more supports. And 12 to 18% of students have a diagnosable mental illness. So it does show that research shows that support underutilization of mental health services, even though the students are distressed, they're still not totally reaching out as much as what we would like them to do, even though there are more students or there are more people in general, regardless of their age, that do recognize that mental health supports are necessary and they're beneficial. We're still not able to get enough. So students who report higher levels of social support, then they have significantly lower levels of distress on these subscales of depression, anxiety, anger management, hostility, and social anxiety, and academic distress. So when we think about this is when the college or when the community, in our case, when the college is able to support multi-factors, multi-levels of social support, then our students will have that lower level of distress, which increases their chances of success in college. So some creative solutions that I've listed some here, and I'm hoping that you have some to add to this. We're going to spend the biggest chunk or the rest of this chunk of time just kind of talking about some different ones: student engagement, communication, social media, marketing, campus events, activities, peer-to-peer support groups. These are all solutions to providing a better mental health support system. So while you're thinking about this, we're going to look at just what does student engagement look like? What does it mean? And student engagement is getting students to take a lead in that peer support. Remember that statistic that we talked about where suicidal students or students that are experiencing suicidal thoughts or ideations, they are more likely to talk to a peer than they are another person. So building in some peer-to-peer support services is a great way to meet the needs there. Having that student representation on a mental health committee, doing more gatekeeper training. I talked about that a little while ago. That's super important. If we can get everybody trained in, I do a training that's called Ask About Suicide Prevention, and to save a life, I think is the rest of it. But it's a super easy 5-step thing that people, if they are understanding of what is entailed in talking to a student that may be suicidal or thinking about suicide, what we can do to support that. You don't have to be a mental health professional to be able to provide that support. And if we can get more people trained in that, they're a lot less likely that we'll have high numbers in suicide. And then those student-led organizations, again, it's that peer-to-peer support with non-professional support with staff, students, faculty. This increases the number of supports around campus, which increases the student connections. And that's that's what this focus committee is all about, that I'm chairing, is trying to figure out what else can we do, what needs to happen, you know, what really appeals to students. So that's where the student engagement comes from. And then on communication, you know, faculty talking about mental health issues, maybe in class or maybe in their faculty meetings, they talk about that. Discussion of the mental health challenges should be added to the curricula, where in class those professors are speaking to what happens when we feel that extreme amount of stress, you know, and what that does to our body, and what it physically and biologically does to our body. This will reduce the stigma and normalize the processes of mental health wellness. Here I do a lot of self-care trainings, and I do that for student groups, I do that for staff groups, because that is the basis for all mental health wellness. Is the better we are taking care of ourselves, the better we can take care of others. Having that requirement that in a course syllabus that the statements are there about, you know, where do students with physical or mental health disabilities get support, and why would they need that support? So those are just a few ideas for communication. Super quickly, I do want to show you this video. It's 1 minute and 25 seconds. And we talked about earlier, someone mentioned about how they do step-by-step with students. You know, videos are a great way to reach students and help them to be aware of mental health issues and what to do about it. And if we have a 30-minute video, they're not watching it. But if we had 5 or 10 3-minute videos, then they're a lot more likely to watch that entire series, breaking it down into chunks so they watch it and they don't feel like it's taking too much time, and they'll go to the next one and go to the next one. And so this is just an example, and I'm going to play it.
Hi everyone. Today we're talking about boundaries. Yes, we're going there. Specifically, relationship boundaries. A boundary is a marker that sets the limit of what you're comfortable with. You know that uneasy feeling when a person stands too close to you? What about an angry feeling when you're super busy and someone gives you one more task? These are boundaries being crossed, and you need to be mindful. Here are a few tips on how to create healthy boundaries. First, take notice of who or what brings stress or happiness to your life. Create an inventory of what recharges you and drains you. Knowing this will help guide you to be more self-aware and confident. Second, have respect for your own time. Are you balancing work and family life? Have you said yes to too many things? Knowing when to say no will help you stay focused on what's the highest priority. And third, advocate for yourself. Our interactions with people model how we want to be treated ourselves. Make sure others know how you would like to be spoken to. Often, poor communication is at the root of many cross boundaries. Oh, and one last thing. Are you being mindful of other people's boundaries? Check your own behavior. By being mindful, we can create a more respectful world for us all.
So that one is from ESE Region 13, which I can't even tell you what town that's in, I'm sorry. They created a series of mental health videos, and you can find this on YouTube. Just as an example, I wanted to show it to you and ask, do any of you do this already? Do you make videos? Have you found any success? Do students and staff like that?
Well, I haven't made any videos, but back during Mental Health Month, I actually was able to write an article about the importance of mental health. I'm the communication specialist at my school.
Awesome. That's awesome. Did you have any feedback from that by chance?
Well, that was when I was super new, so I didn't get as much feedback as I would have liked, but it was definitely a good article, and I got the people I interviewed with were very knowledgeable. Our counselor, she really liked it, and yeah, like I said, I was brand new, so I didn't really know how to truly get it out there like I do now, but I definitely
That's
think
cool.
I want to get more into that.
Awesome.
Oh, I forgot. I also did one about happiness in the workplace and how healthy that is.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Annie. Thanks for sharing that.
This
Anybody
is Joe.
else?
I would like to point out, I love this concept. And when Cindy and I were talking about this session, and she talked about how especially current students are so much more likely to listen, to watch 15 videos in a series, but they won't listen to a long video. And so I thought that was really groundbreaking to me, because if your colleges are anything like ours, our processes are way more complicated than they probably have to be. And then by the time we explain those processes, they're even more complicated. They come across as even more complicated. And even if we're not doing our videos and our communication about mental health specifically, I love the idea, like Elizabeth was talking about, like breaking these processes down into digestible bites and doing video tutorials and things like that, and maybe having YouTube playlists. I just love that concept of being able to present that content in a way that they are more able to comprehend it and absorb it. Because I feel like, me personally as a communicator, I feel like, coming from a journalism background, and I like paragraphs and I like words, and people don't have the attention spans that they used to. And I think that we could help with their mental health and do away with some of that anxiety by doing a better job of presenting these topics that are stressing them out. And maybe it's not necessary for them to stress them out as much as we are.
I totally agree with you. That's absolutely true. And that's what I love about those videos specifically, and just the concept of it, is that it identifies an issue, and then it tells you kind of what to do about it. And it's just plain language. It's not anything that's fancy, anything all, big words, whatever. It's just consider this. Okay, so I'll go back to this one. Oh, sorry. So we've got not as much time as I'd hoped, but we still have a little bit of time here, and I'd really like to just brainstorm some ideas. So considering, the slide that mentioned a few slides ago, student engagement, communication, social media, marketing, campus events, peer-to-peer groups, and any other ideas that you may have thought about when you saw that, what is something that you are currently doing on your campus, on your college campus, that from your marketing view, your communication role, what are you currently doing to help, with mental health support? Or what would you like to do? What are some ideas that you have that, I've always thought about this, but I don't know. I think now is a great time for us to share that, because we learn better from each other. And why reinvent the wheel? If somebody else is doing something, let's get on board and take that idea too.
This is Lisa Elliott from McLennan Community College in Waco. Something we've done recently is what I call the just-in-time resources. We have a calendar where each week we ask the professors, we've given them a little spiel to read in class, just 2 or 3 sentences about a resource, and many of them are mental health related. Some of them are also, like food pantry information, just free things that our students have as resources, because we found they go to orientation and they learn all this stuff, but then when they need it, they forget it. And so we've kind of timed it where, like, in the first week, I asked a faculty advisory group to kind of look at the timing of all of these to see, when is it that a student might need mental health, like the counseling center, the most? When would they might need tutoring the most? And so we came up with a 16-week calendar and then an 8-week calendar, because we also have 8-week classes. And the faculty, for the most part, they've been pretty open to it. And the courses that are online, those faculty members are putting that information into Blackboard, into Brightspace, which is what we use for our LMS. And then we also take those same topics and we put them on social media at the same time as it's going out to the students in the classroom. I can't say for sure if it's working yet. We just kind of started it this semester. But yeah, I just think sometimes we tell them about these things, and like they'll send us information back in surveys saying, yes, I knew we have a counseling center, but like during that kind of time when they need it the most, I think they either feel self-conscious about going to do it, and maybe this might help spur them to go ahead and go over to the counseling center and get help, or they forget it's even available. But that's what we've done recently.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure, as I'm writing this down, so how do you come up with your topics that you're going to share each week?
Yeah. Well, we already had a social media editorial calendar where we have some different topics, and so we have put all of our resources in there that are student resources. So we took those, and there were more than 16 weeks, and so I sent them to one of our department chairs, who then sent it to her faculty and asked them, of these 16, what's most important to a student during the time in the semester. So we did cut out some of those, but we included things like when scholarships are open, so that's not just mental health stuff, but like the week that scholarship applications are open, that's when we talk about that one. Like library, when do they need to remember there's a library? So like they gave us I think it was the 4th week or something like that, and then like toward the end of the semester, tutoring was kind of the one of them. So they did it for us as far as when it was going to be, and also those topics.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that, being able to use the faculty who do have firsthand information of needs there, and kind of time of year of what those needs would be. That's cool. Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
And we gave them PowerPoint slides, and then, like I said, a little script that has 2 or 3 sentences that they could just read out if they just want to take like 1 minute to show this slide, and it has a QR code on it for students to get to the link, and then they just read the spiel. Now, some of them will spend a little bit more time talking about it, but we didn't want to burden the faculty too much with the time that they need for their class.
That's spot on, because like we've been talking about with everything, if we can keep it brief but then expose them to more, one of the things that we've also been talking about is our students in focus groups, they are saying we want more posters that tell us what's going on, and the staff is like, oh my gosh, we've got posters everywhere, how can you possibly want more posters? But what we've talked about is more posters with less words, attention getting, where it draws their attention to it, and then just a QR code where they have to click in to be able to get that information. But yeah, and this is really, really good, because anything that is quick and brief, and it's not like putting too much stress there, but it does put it in where they are, in that classroom.
I'll put the link to the web page that we created on it too, so y'all can look at that too. And that you're feel free to just do whatever you want to with it.
Thank you, Lisa. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. Cool.
Hey, this is Jody. I wanted to point out, Cindy was so nice to let me sit in on one of their focus groups. And I noticed that this theme, when we had the student panel at the TACCM conference last year, and I saw the same theme in ours, and this was shocking to me, because what the feedback we were hearing from students is that they want more contact and interaction with adult figures. Like, they want to talk to faculty. They love the concept of seeing faculty and staff on social media. Like, they would love to see their algebra teacher doing TikTok dances. And that was really kind of hard to get around, because in the past, past. It felt like, I've been here for 17 years, and it felt like the past generations of college students thought we were all completely lame, and they didn't care what we thought, and they thought we were uncool, and they didn't want to hear from us. And so that was kind of the assumption that we worked under. And it seems like there's been a shift in the attitude. And I think maybe these younger people are like, they're a lot more involved with their parents, and they rely on adult input a lot more, and they are craving it. So I feel like maybe I could adjust my social media and other strategies a little bit accordingly. So I just want to throw that out there.
They think we're cool.
I can't.
Annie, did you have a question? Nope.
Oh, well, basically, I was just going to say that I'm going to brag on my school a bit because this isn't my work, it's theirs. But since our campus is so much smaller, well, the campus itself, not the school, I work with TSTC in Marshall, and our ARC director, he is always trying to schedule regular events for students, just fun events like video game nights, or he'll cook them dinner. And we have a food pantry so they don't have to worry about food. And we try to have a resource fair every year to let the students know of resources that are out there to help with them finding a job or getting more food, stuff like that, paying rent. And he actually even offers money to students who, if they need it to pay rent or bills or anything like that.
Wow, that's awesome. It's really, really good. Yeah, I know we have a lot of activities and nights or evenings that they'll provide things for students, and not always a lot of takers. Do y'all have that issue? Like, how are you getting your kids to attend events?
Yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of them aren't interested in attending because so many of them are so shy. Since we're a technical school, a lot of them don't a lot of them don't have as many social, or not as comfortable with social settings like other kids are. But yeah, we do have occasional attenders, and they still, even if they don't attend the events, they still keep the resources in mind. They still use the food pantry, and we're working on a clothing pantry. They still are grateful for the resources.
That's awesome. Awesome. Who else? Anybody else have something that you're doing or you want to do that you'd like to share? I'm a counselor. I have a lot of good wait time.
For exactly 1 o'clock. So if anybody, I think we can probably continue if anybody wants to, but we are right at the end. And I know I've learned a lot, and I'd already talked to you about this a lot, so I got a lot out of it.
Awesome. Well, and this whole thing, like I said, I will share with you. I've already sent to somebody, and so they can share this PowerPoint with you in case there was something else. But any ideas that you come up with, we would love to hear them. In future meetings that you have with each other, or if you just want to share them out, because we're all doing the same thing with the same goals in mind. And I just really appreciate you letting me be here today with you and have these conversations, because you all have some really good input and really good ideas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right.
Thank you.
See you later.